Hello Scribbles, welcome in. I'm Nina, I'm an illustrator and comic artist. Welcome to my channel. VidFair asked for a tutorial on fur for clothing, so let's go. Let's start with the basics. First, you draw a guideline, because if you just start like while drawing, you're probably gonna lose your shape, you're probably just gonna miss something. To make sure you don't lose your shape or it doesn't look weird, draw your shape in a guideline first. Let's make it like this. And then you start drawing the actual fur. You have to be patient and draw. The pointy parts and make they come and go, kind of look like grass. This here is long fur, but you can make short fur also. I'm making them in different sizes and lengths, then don't look all the same. See, now this is long fur. We can make shorter fur as well. Let's make another guideline and follow with shorter fur. Now the tricky part about fur is not necessarily drawing it, but when you get to the coloring part. There are different ways of rendering it, and we're gonna see two main ways. One is with line art and the other one is just colored. I made this drawing here and I duplicated it so we can work with both of them. First, let's add fur to it. Let's make here the guideline for the spots I want to draw the fur on. Then let's actually draw the fur. On the first one, we're doing the line art. After adding the line art, we're gonna apply the base color and start shading it. Now when you do fur line art and you have those parts here that are very thin, what happens is, when you're filling in with color, you may get those empty pixels on the edges. I personally prefer to have thinner edges and the pointy parts of the fur on my drawing. I used to fill these parts manually. I come with a pen here and I fill in the empty pixels. If you think this is too annoying, if you don't want to waste your time doing it, make sure during the line art that you make more of an open shape, so your edges aren't that pointy. You can make open shapes. So when you fill it with a bucket, you won't get those empty parts on the edges, see? Now for the shading, I am using Clip Studio Paint, so I am making a new layer and I'm clipping it to the layer below. If you're using a different software, you can use a mask layer or whatever works the same way in the software you're using. I'm gonna pick a darker color. And I'll start drawing. Again, pointy shapes. It's like I'm drawing more fur inside the fur. The fur I'm drawing here, I'm painting here, doesn't have to look exactly like the shapes on the edges. You can do it a little different. It's not copying the same shapes. Now this is very important, we're gonna start blending the color in. When you start blending, make sure you don't blend everything, all the edges you just drew, because if you do it like this, everything will look kind of plain and you don't get the texture of fur that we're looking for here. So this is not what we're going for. Instead, what we wanna do is find the size of a pen that matches the edges of the fur we just did and start pulling it. You keep pulling the edges, trying to keep the shape of your fur. The edges will be blending with the base color, but you won't lose the shapes you did, so you still keep the texture. See? You can already see the difference from this part we just blended to the other parts we didn't. You can add more colors, you can add more depth if you want, but the base texture looks like this. Now let's do a different rendering. I'm making a new layer here, and let's get a complete different color. Let's go with purple. I like purple. This time, instead of making the line art, we are just painting with no outline. Straight up in color. We'll be doing pretty much the same thing we did before. I'm adding a new layer, clipping it to the layer below, getting a darker color on the wheel, and start adding the shadows. What's the difference then, you may ask? Since you don't have the line art to be the contour of the shape, you have to work with the colors to create these limits on the shape and the texture to make it look like it's well defined. So you have to put more effort in adding contrast and getting the correct texture here, but also thinking about how to keep the edges well defined. As I said before, you can add more undertones, you can add more contrast. In fact, it works better if you do so. So let's add a little more here. That's it. These are two different ways of painting fur. They are very similar, but they are a little bit different on the aesthetics. Which one you choose really depends on your style, and it may look a little different depending on the colors you choose for shading and highlighting. I hope this humble tutorial have helped you. If you want, join our Discord and show us what you made. Thanks for watching. Bye!